You ever hear a sentence in your head, one your parents said to you years ago, and it still makes your stomach twist? Something like, "You're so sensitive." Or maybe, "Why can't you be more like your sister?" At the time, you didn't know it was planting a seed. But now, every time you second-guess yourself, every time your heart races in silence, that sentence echoes again. That's not just a memory. That's anxiety that never really left. Hey, before we dive in, this isn't about blaming our parents. Most of them were doing the best they could with what they had. They didn't know how deeply their words could dig into our subconscious. But if you're here, watching this, maybe you felt it too. An invisible pressure that started in childhood and somehow became a part of who you are. Today, we're going to unpack 5 seemingly harmless phrases that may have shaped your anxiety and still influence your thoughts, your relationships, and even how you talk to yourself. And most importantly, we'll talk about how to start letting go. So let's go back in time, just for a bit. 1. Stop crying or I'll give you something to cry about. Sounds tough, right? But to a child, this feels like a threat against their emotions. It teaches you that pain is only valid if it's visible, if it fits someone else's definition. You fell off your bike. Your knee is bleeding, but more than that, your feelings are hurt. You're overwhelmed, scared. But instead of comfort, you get a voice booming over you. Stop crying or I'll give you something to cry about. In that moment, your brain gets a powerful message. Emotions are dangerous. Don't express them. You'll just get hurt worse. Now fast forward to adulthood. You're sitting in a meeting. Your chest is tight. Your eyes burn. But you smile and say, "I'm fine." Why? Because you've been trained to fear your own feelings. To swallow your pain until it turns into tension, silence, and panic. That's not weakness. That's conditioning. 2. Why can't you be more like someone else? Comparison might be the thief of joy, but for a lot of us, it was the soundtrack of our childhood. Maybe it was, "Look at your cousin, he's always top of his class." Or, "Your sister never talks back like you do." What we heard was, "You're not enough. Love is earned, not given." This creates toxic perfectionism. You start measuring your worth by impossible standards. You become terrified of failure. Even small mistakes feel like proof that you're unlovable. You hustle. You overachieve. You become the reliable one, the successful one, even the funny one, anything to be enough. But inside, there's a voice saying, "You're still not her. You're still not him." And that anxiety, it doesn't care how many certificates you hang on the wall. It only knows how to chase approval and never feel like it arrives. If any of this is resonating with you, take a second right now. Hit that like button. Not just for me, but for you. For that inner child who never got to feel fully heard. And if you want to keep exploring how our childhood shapes our minds, make sure to subscribe, because we've got a lot more to unpack. Alright, back to it. 3. Because I said so. Remember that one? You asked why, and instead of an answer, you got a wall. Because I said so. It was the ultimate shutdown. Here's the thing. Kids are naturally curious. They want to understand the world. But this phrase doesn't just stop curiosity. It teaches obedience over understanding. You learn that questioning is dangerous. That authority must not be challenged. That your thoughts are less important than the rules. Now, imagine being that adult. In a job where the boss says just do it, and you feel your heart race. You don't ask questions. You don't speak up. You just comply. Even when it feels wrong. Even when it burns. Why? Because asking why once got you in trouble. 4. You'll never survive in the real world if you act like that. This one usually came after showing some kind of vulnerability. Crying when something felt unfair. Standing up for yourself. Or simply struggling with something that adults thought was easy. You think life is hard now? Wait till you're on your own. The world won't coddle you. And just like that, childhood ended before it even began. You were told the world was harsh, cold, unforgiving, that your softness equals weakness. So, you toughened up, or tried to. You stopped asking for help. You stopped believing that people could be kind. You built walls. And inside those walls, anxiety. Because now, anytime you feel overwhelmed, you don't just feel the stress of the moment. You feel ashamed for not being stronger. You think, if I'm this sensitive, I must be broken. But you're not broken. You're human. And the world? It doesn't need more numb people pretending they're okay. It needs more people who feel deeply and act with empathy. 5. Good kids don't talk back. This one's tricky. Because yeah, kids do need boundaries. But when talking back means having an opinion, when respect means never disagreeing, you learn that being good means being silent. And that silence sticks. At school, you don't raise your hand even when you know the answer. In relationships, you don't say how you really feel. At work, you nod, even when your gut screams no. You become the peacekeeper. The one who avoids conflict at all costs. But here's the cost. Your voice. Your truth. Your mental health. Because constantly swallowing your feelings doesn't make you peaceful. It makes you anxious. It makes your body scream in ways your mouth isn't allowed to. You weren't born anxious. You were taught to suppress. And suppression always leaks out somewhere. Sleepless nights. Racing thoughts. Tight chest. Anxiety isn't the enemy. Silence is. Let's pause here. You might be wondering, what do I even do with all of this? The first step? Recognize that those voices in your head, they're not always your own. Sometimes, anxiety isn't about the present moment. It's a leftover defense mechanism. Your brain trying to protect a younger version of you. And you don't have to hate your parents to heal from what hurt you. You just have to be honest about what you needed and didn't get. Validation, understanding, the freedom to be flawed. And here's the wild part. You can start giving those things to yourself, right now. The healing begins here. Start small. When you hear that inner critic say, "You're too sensitive," try responding with, "My emotions are valid. I'm allowed to feel." When it whispers, "You'll never be enough," say, "I don't need to be perfect to deserve love." It sounds cheesy, maybe, but repetition is how those old messages got planted. And repetition is how we replace them. Therapy helps. Journaling helps. Even just talking to a friend and saying, "Hey, I think this belief I have about myself, it didn't start with me." That's how we start to untangle the web. In the next part, we'll go even deeper. We'll break down how these patterns show up in adult relationships, career choices, and self-esteem, and how to stop anxiety from being the narrator of your life. And we'll wrap it all up with a strong, hopeful conclusion you won't want to miss. How these messages shape your adult life. You might think those childhood phrases were just words. But words are powerful. They don't just echo in your mind, they shape your identity. Let's look at how these old messages quietly sneak into your adult life. 1. Your relationships. You're in a relationship. They ask you, "What's wrong?" You say, "Nothing." But inside, you're spiraling. You're anxious they'll leave if you're too much. You're afraid to rock the boat. Because somewhere deep down, you were taught, don't make a scene. Don't be dramatic. Keep the peace. So you shrink. You suppress. And the anxiety grows louder every time you smile through pain. Or maybe, you go the other direction. You become controlling, paranoid, constantly needing reassurance, because your worth was never unconditional. If love was performance-based growing up, you're stuck proving you're worthy of staying. Every single day. 2. Your career. That voice that said, "You're not trying hard enough," becomes your inner boss. You can't rest. You overwork. You achieve, but you're never satisfied. No promotion ever feels like enough. No paycheck quiets the shame. Because when your value is tied to output, you don't work to live, you live to work. And anxiety becomes your engine. Or maybe, you're terrified to even start. You procrastinate. Self-sabotage. You say, I'm lazy. But really, you're paralyzed by perfectionism. Because if it's not perfect, you believe you'll be punished. And guess what? That belief didn't come from nowhere. 3. Your self-worth. You look in the mirror and can't say one kind thing. You doubt compliments. You feel like an imposter even when you've earned your place. Why? Because those tiny digs from childhood. Why can't you be more like your cousin? You're gaining weight. No one will love you if you act like that. They became the script you repeat. So now, when someone does love you, it feels off, unsafe, unfamiliar. And this is the most painful irony. You crave love, but you don't believe you deserve it. That's what anxiety does. It builds a wall between who you are and who you think you have to be accepted. But here's what no one told you. You don't need to earn love. You were born worthy. Let's take a breath. If this hit close to home, pause for a moment. You're not alone in this. So many of us were raised in environments where fear looked like love, and control looked like care. And if this video has resonated so far, take a second to hit the like button. It really helps the channel reach more people dealing with the same silent struggles. And if you want more content like this, about mental health, childhood wounds, and real healing, subscribe and join this growing community. We're in this together. Now, back to it. Breaking the cycle. You might be wondering, okay, I see the patterns, but how do I break them? Start with this one mindset shift. Your anxiety is trying to protect you. It's not your enemy. It's an overworked bodyguard doing its best with outdated instructions. Let's rewrite those instructions. 1. I can be emotional and still be strong. Tears aren't weakness. Sensitivity isn't a flaw. They're signals, guiding you to your needs. Let them speak. 2. I can rest without guilt. Your value doesn't shrink when you stop producing. You're allowed to be a human being, not a human doing. 3. I can use my voice and still be loved. Disagreement doesn't equal disrespect. You can speak your truth and stay connected. Boundaries build real safety, not distance. Real stories, real healing. Let me tell you about Emily. She grew up hearing, "Stop crying or I'll give you something to cry about." So she stopped crying. She became the strong one, the responsible one. But inside, she was numb. At 28, Emily had her first panic attack. Not during a crisis, but while folding laundry. Because all that emotion she buried for years, it found a crack, and it exploded through. Therapy helped. But you know what helped even more? Learning to cry again. Learning that tears weren't threats. They were truths. Today, Emily lets herself feel. Not all the time. Not perfectly. But enough to breathe without choking on her own silence. Or take Marcus. He was told, "You'll never succeed if you don't listen." So he stopped questioning things. Took the safe job. Stayed quiet in meetings. Laughed when he didn't get the joke. Nodded when he wanted to scream. At 35, he realized he didn't know what he believed, only what others expected of him. He quit his job. Started over. And for the first time, asked, "What do I want?" It was terrifying. But that fear, it wasn't weakness. It was growth. And then there's Nadia. Her parents constantly compared her to others. Why can't you be more like your brother? So she became everyone else. Perfect student. Polite daughter. People pleaser. But at 30, after her second divorce and third burnout, she broke down. And in that breakdown, she finally asked, Who am I when no one's watching? She started journaling, taking solo trips, saying no. It didn't happen overnight. But now, she smiles without forcing it. Not because her life is perfect, but because, for once, it's hers. You can break the pattern too. These stories aren't about happy endings. They're about taking back control. About saying, maybe I didn't choose the script, but I can choose the next line. And you're already doing it. By watching this. By questioning what you were taught. By listening to your anxiety not as a curse, but as a clue. A clue that something inside you is asking for attention, for kindness, for healing. What healing really looks like. It's not a dramatic transformation. It's not a one-time fix. Healing looks like noticing when your chest tightens and saying, I'm safe right now. Saying no without explaining yourself. Letting yourself rest without earning it. Telling your inner child, you didn't deserve that. Choosing partners, friends, jobs that don't feel like battles. It's slow. It's clumsy. But it's real. The truth no one told you. You were never the problem. You were a child, doing your best to survive in a world you didn't control. The anxiety you feel today, it's not weakness. It's the echo of a nervous system that was trained to stay alert, to stay small, to stay silent, because that's what kept you safe. But now, you're not that child anymore. You have power. You have choice. And most importantly, you have awareness. Awareness is the beginning of every revolution, and you're starting one inside yourself. The power of reparenting yourself. You don't have to wait for your parents to apologize. You don't have to wait for them to understand, because now, you get to reparent yourself. That means, you talk to yourself with kindness, not criticism. You let yourself rest, without guilt. You celebrate effort, not just results. You validate your own feelings, even if no one else does. You learn to say, I matter, and believe it. This isn't about blaming your parents forever. It's about healing the version of you they couldn't protect. And maybe, just maybe, it's about becoming the kind of adult your younger self desperately needed. A final word to the child inside you, to the little version of you, sitting in a dark room, wondering why they weren't enough. You were never too emotional, never too sensitive, never too much. You were a child with big feelings and no safe place to put them. That's not a flaw. That's a story, and you get to rewrite it. So next time that anxious voice rises up, don't fight it. Don't shame it. Talk to it. Say, I hear you. You're scared. But we're safe now. I've got you. That small voice? It's not your enemy. It's your younger self, finally feeling heard. Let's keep this conversation going. If this video helped you feel seen, even a little, drop a comment below. Share your story. You never know who you might help by speaking your truth. And if you haven't yet, subscribe to the channel. We dive deep into the stuff no one talks about: childhood wounds, adult anxiety, healing, trauma, and rebuilding from the inside out. This community is here to remind you, you're not broken. You're healing. One video at a time. One breath at a time. One kinder thought at a time. You deserve peace. You don't have to earn peace. You don't have to hustle for healing. You don't have to prove your pain to be worthy of love. You deserve peace simply because you exist. So if no one ever told you this before, let me be the first. You're doing better than you think. You're not alone. And your story isn't over. It's just beginning. Take care of that inner child. They've been waiting for you.